All right, let's journey back to ancient Greece and dive into the story of one of mythology's most iconic monsters. We're talking about a creature born from a god's rage, trapped in an impossible maze, and a symbol of something much deeper than just a scary beast. So, before we get to the monster itself, it really helps to understand the name. In ancient Greek, it's actually super literal. You've got Minos for the king, and Tauros, which means bull. Put them together, and Minotaurus just means the bull of Minos. The name tells you exactly who this creature belongs to. So, what's the real story here? Well, it's a massive epic of pride, punishment, and ultimately sacrifice. You've got a desperate hero going up against this unnatural beast, and the whole thing is set in motion by a seriously furious god. This is so much more than a monster story. It's a tragedy on an absolutely grand scale. Our story kicks off with King Minos of Crete. Now, he's looking to lock down his claim to the throne and, prove that the gods have his back. So he does what you do. He prays to Poseidon, the mighty god of the sea, and asks for a sign, a spectacular bull to rise right out of the waves. And Poseidon delivers. A magnificent snow-white bull appears, just as he asked. But this is where it all goes wrong. Minos is just so blown away by how beautiful the animal is that he completely breaks his promise. He keeps the divine bull for his own herds and sacrifices some other lesser bull instead. He probably figured, hey, a god won't notice. Oh, he was wrong. Very wrong. So to punish Minos for this incredible arrogance, Poseidon doesn't just strike him down. No, that would be too easy. Instead, he comes up with a truly twisted and, frankly, humiliating revenge. He makes Minos' wife, Queen Pasiphae, fall desperately and unnaturally in love with that very same white bull. This curse leads to one of the most bizarre sequences in all of Greek mythology. The queen, completely consumed by this god-given desire, goes to the genius inventor Daedalus and has him build a hollow wooden cow. She then hides inside it, tricking the bull, and the result of this unholy union was a monstrous child, a creature with the body of a man and the head of a bull. She named him Asterion. As Asterion, who everyone soon starts calling the Minotaur, grew up, a horrifying problem became obvious. See, as the unnatural offspring of a human and a beast, he had no natural food. His hunger, his very nature, craved only one thing: human flesh. King Minos is, of course, absolutely horrified. He needs to contain this monster, which is this constant, living reminder of his own shame. So, following the advice of the oracle at Delphi, he once again calls on Daedalus, yep, the same guy who enabled the creature's birth, and tasks him with building an inescapable prison, the legendary Labyrinth. Just when you think things couldn't get any darker, they do. Minos' son, Androgeus, is killed while in Athens. Furious, Minos declares war, and he wins. But victory isn't enough for him. He demands a terrible, ongoing price for his son's death, a tribute that would feed the very monster he'd locked away in the maze. Every 9 years, Athens was forced to send this horrific tribute. And this was the price: 14 young lives sent to Crete as a living sacrifice, with absolutely zero hope of ever coming home. I mean, just try to imagine the sheer horror of this. 7 young men and 7 young women, chosen completely by lottery, put on a ship with black sails, and sent off to be thrown into the labyrinth one by one, to be hunted and devoured. It was the ultimate brutal display of Cretan power over Athens. But then, on the 3rd time this sacrifice was due, a hero finally stepped up. Theseus, the prince of Athens himself, volunteered to be one of the 7 young men. He promised his father, King Aegeus, that he wasn't going to be a victim. He was going to be the Minotaur's killer. So, Theseus's plan was clear. Get in, kill the monster, stop this horrible tribute, and get back home a hero. And he made one very, very crucial promise to his father. He would swap the ship's black sail of mourning for a white one of victory, so the king, watching from the shore, would know he'd succeeded. When he gets to Crete, Theseus's sheer courage catches the eye of, you guessed it, King Minos' own daughter, Ariadne. She instantly falls in love with the Athenian prince and decides to betray her own father to save him. She gives him 2 things, a sword and the secret to survival, a ball of thread to find his way out of the maze. So, following Ariadne's brilliant plan, Theseus ventures into the labyrinth, tying the thread to the entrance and unspooling it as he goes. He finds the Minotaur deep in the dark center of the maze, and after a ferocious fight, he kills the beast. He ends its tormented life, and he ends Crete's reign of terror over his city. But this hero's story takes a deeply tragic turn on the way home. Theseus escapes with Ariadne but then abandons her on the island of Naxos for complicated reasons. And in the chaos of it all, he makes a fatal mistake. He forgets to change the black sail to white. His father, King Aegeus, watching from the cliffs day after day, sees that black sail on the horizon. Believing his son is dead, he throws himself into the sea in grief, the very sea that we call the Aegean Sea to this day. So, the Minotaur was finally defeated. The hero, through this unbelievable tragedy, becomes king. But the story, it doesn't end there. The bigger question is, why? Why are we still so captivated by this myth of a bull-headed man in a maze thousands of years later? Well, scholars have all kinds of theories. Some think it's all just political allegory. Theseus from Athens beating the Minotaur from Crete is a symbol of Athens finally breaking free from Minoan domination. Others point to an astronomical link, since the monster's real name, Asterion, means star. And a really cool theory connects it all to geology, that the bellowing of the monster was just a way to explain the terrifying sounds of earthquakes in the region. Whatever its origin, the image of the Minotaur has been incredibly powerful from the start. We see him all over ancient Greek vases and coins. He shows up in classic literature, from Ovid's poetry to guarding the circle of violence in Dante's Inferno. And in the 20th century, the artist Pablo Picasso became completely obsessed with the figure, using it to explore these deep ideas about brutality and the beast inside us all. And that legacy is totally alive and well today. The Minotaur is a staple of modern fantasy. He's in C.S. Lewis's Narnia, he's in the Percy Jackson books, he's a classic boss you have to beat in video games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and a go-to monster in tabletop games like Dungeons & Dragons. It just shows how that image of man and beast combined is still such a powerful idea. What's really fascinating is how our idea of the creature has totally changed. In the original myth, Minotaur was a proper name. There was only one, the Bull of Minos. But thanks to modern fantasy, the name has become a common noun. Now we talk about minotaurs as a whole species of bull-headed monsters. And that really brings us to a final, pretty deep thought. The writer Jorge Luis Borges brilliantly retold the story from the monster's perspective. He imagined the Minotaur not as some ravenous beast, but as a lonely, isolated soul just waiting in his maze for someone to find him. It totally reframes everything and forces you to ask, who was the real monster here? Was it the creature who never even asked to be born? Or was it the kings and gods whose pride and cruelty created him in the first place?